Welcome to another episode of Tech Marketing Trends, the podcast where we dive deep into the dynamics of technology, sales, marketing, and the innovation shaping our future. Today's episode is titled The Power of LinkedIn Ads, and we're thrilled to have no other than AJ Wilcox, a leading expert in LinkedIn advertising and the founder of B2 Linked with us. And with an over a decade of experience, AJ has honed his skills in utilizing LinkedIn not just as a networking platform, which we normal people know it as, but as a formal tool for targeted advertising and strategic marketing. And his focus works a lot of optimizing ad campaigns, providing strategic insights that help businesses fully exploit the unique capabilities of LinkedIn advertising. And today, AJ will share the latest trends, best practices, and his expert insights into LinkedIn ads as a powerful component of digital marketing strategies. With that short introduction, AJ, welcome to Tech Marketing Trends.
Jacob, thanks for having me back.
So wonderful to have you here again. It was a few years now since we had you last time, and I'm stoked to have you because there's so much going on in the world of advertising and digital marketing, of course, and not to mention at least LinkedIn as a platform for advertising. So yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's changed so much.
yeah, I do. But for people who weren't listening last time, a short intro about a little bit who you are and what you're up to today.
Yeah, sure. So, long story short, it's been about 12 years ago. I stumbled into LinkedIn ads. I was a search engine optimization guy and a Google ads guy, and I got tasked at a previous company with working on LinkedIn ads, and it ended up being the most successful channel for the entire company. That company went on to go public. I was their first digital marketing guy, and I took it over the 2.5 years of managing that account to become LinkedIn's largest spending account worldwide. And so after 2.5 years of running that, I went, okay, there have to be more companies who need help with LinkedIn ads than this. And so about 9 years ago, I jumped off and started b2linked.com. And we're an ad agency that LinkedIn ads is all we do. Management of people's ads, better than anyone else on the planet, if I can say so. And, consulting, training, we have courses, we have a community. We are just crazy about LinkedIn ads.
Love it. Yeah, specialization at its finest.
Absolutely.
And that was quite some platform to bet on as well. I mean, what a phenomenal growth LinkedIn as a platform had over the last decade. So fantastic bet there. But could you give us a brief overview of what makes LinkedIn advertising unique compared to other social media platforms which you potentially could advertise on as well?
Yeah, it's the only platform that really owns your professional data. And I've talked about this with a lot of people where if I look at their Facebook profile, lots of times you can see where they say they work, and you look at their job title and you go, "Oh, that was like 2 jobs ago. Why didn't you update that?" But LinkedIn is the place that we go. It's the first place that we think to update when we get a promotion or change
Mm,
jobs. So
mm,
the data that LinkedIn has on us is always up to date. And
mm,
it's also the only social media channel out there that knows who we are professionally. And so when we're in, especially in the business to business space, where we sell to a very specific persona by their job title and their industry and their size of company, by their company name, LinkedIn is just the only game in town. And so that's why it's made so much sense in the last few years why LinkedIn ads has gotten so hot, is because when you're advertising to that specific persona, there is no other channel where you can do this in a really targeted manner. You can do it with all the other ad platforms, but there's tons of waste. Your sales team has to throw out 90% or more of the leads. But with LinkedIn, 100% of them are exactly your ideal audience.
so interesting. And they have developed this platform over the years and maybe realizing the power they're actually sitting on, as you say. So, what are the most significant changes LinkedIn has made to its advertising platform this year or last year? And how do you have seen these changes impact advertisers?
Yeah, I think there are two really big ones that I want to hit on. The first is um, cold audience. We know this. Cold audiences are not ready to buy. And
Mm,
so if you want and everyone wants this, every B2B company wants to get sales team meetings set up, demos, sales calls. Everyone, this is their goal. But we know that a cold audience who doesn't know who you are is not ready to do this. And so LinkedIn have really gone all in on their retargeting abilities, and they now have better retargeting abilities than any other platform out there. So, you know, website retargeting is something that everyone offers, but it's so weak because it's dependent on a cookie being in your browser. And we know that browsers are at war with cookies, and cookies will be going away. So everyone's kind of on the same playing field that way. But what LinkedIn's done is they've said, well, when someone takes an action on LinkedIn, they're logged in, so we know who they are. So if we can just keep track of what they're doing, we can then decide, or we can then make this retargeting available to advertisers. So now, just in the last couple years, we have the ability to retarget anyone who watches at least 25% of a video ad, anyone who visits your company page on LinkedIn, anyone who scrolls through one of your document ads, anyone who engages in any way with a single image ad. So they're building these around all of their different ad products. So now, as soon as someone takes action on your, we'll call them like a top of funnel ad, you can then put them into a retargeting audience and say, okay, we know they've had at least one meaningful interaction with our company. Now we can show them a deeper or a different message. So I think that's like number one, the coolest thing that LinkedIn's done. And number two is just this last year in 2023, they gave us a new ad format that we've been asking for years and years and years. And this is thought leader ads. So all the other ads that we've run, they all originate from the company. And on average, these get about 0.5% click-through rate. You could just imagine how you are like looking at your news feed in LinkedIn. When you see a company post come up from a company you've never heard of, you just keep scrolling. But what thought leader ads do, they allow us to boost the post of an individual. And these get easily 3 to 5 times the engagement. We've seen some that get 10 times the engagement or more of a company page post. And now all of a sudden we see our costs per click down to like a fifth, or sometimes as low as an eighth of what it was when we were boosting company posts. So all of that to say, if you're investing really heavily in these thought leader ads, you're going to see better performance at lower costs. And it's an absolute game changer.
Wonderful. So interesting. Two interesting changes we need to make sure we use and utilize in our campaigns now. And I just want to double click a little bit about the targeting capabilities, because as you say, that's how I view it, as the super unique capabilities of LinkedIn as an advertising platform, that you can more or less target individuals or very, very narrow. So could you elaborate a little bit about the targeting capabilities in LinkedIn in combination to what you just talked about? And how granular could advertisers that you work with and maybe exemplify a little bit how you do audience segmentation and what a typical good campaign or targeting segmentation could look like when you work in setting up a campaign or so?
Yeah, Jacob, beautiful question. When we get really specific on an audience on LinkedIn, we can get all the way down to 300 people. If the audience is smaller than that, LinkedIn says, oh, that's a privacy concern. So they make it larger. But as long as you have an audience size of at least 300, you can run a campaign. But we recommend campaigns that are between about 20,000 to 80,000 people. If you're used to advertising on Meta, they like very large audiences because their machine learning, their AI is so good at understanding who might be interested in something. On LinkedIn, we don't leave that up to AI. We just get very specific. When I think about targeting, I break it up into 2 different camps. We have targeting the professional, his or herself, and then we have what kind of company that they're at. And LinkedIn does both of these really well. Targeting the professional, I think everyone goes to job titles, and we definitely use job title targeting. It makes a lot of sense. But there's also, you can target by someone's level of seniority in the organization. You can target what department they work in, skills that they've listed on their profile, individual groups that they're members of. We can target by, if you're a member of a group that has HubSpot in the name, we want to target you. Like that's the level of granularity you can get down to. There's interests, there's other traits, tons and tons of abilities there to reach the professional. Then when you start talking about the company, LinkedIn was the first ABM platform out there. Back in 2008, when the platform came out, we could target by specific company names, and it's just gotten better since. So that's something we can do. We can narrow down on a specific list of companies. We can target by an industry someone's in, a size of company, a revenue of company, followers of your company, lots of different things that we can use there. And everything I've mentioned, I do want to mention two more really cool abilities on LinkedIn. We can upload lists. And on every other platform, like major platform, we can upload lists of individuals, of email addresses, sure. But on LinkedIn, we can not only upload a list of individuals with email addresses, like everyone else can, but the secret is we don't even need their email address. LinkedIn doesn't need to know who someone's email address is to know who they are. It needs to know their first name, last name, what company they work for, and their job title. So if you can give them these four things, you don't even need the email address. So that's kind of cool. The other upload we have is a list of company names. So you could upload a list of up to 300,000 companies as an ABM list, and no other platform can do that. So all of these targeting that I've talked about, this is probably only about a third of what's available. When you get in, you'll see something like 28 different ways of targeting and more coming all the time.
Beautiful, beautiful. And that is so powerful, of course. And really triggers the imagination of every marketeer, I suppose. And another area, as you talked a little bit about, are the creative strategies around LinkedIn and so forth. And we have seen different content types coming into presence and so forth. So talk to us a little bit about what kinds and types of creative content are performing the best on LinkedIn right now. Any trends in this area?
Yeah, so many. The two top ones I want to hit on that are killing it right now are number one, video. When I say you need video content on LinkedIn, there's a lot of marketers out there who just got really scared. And they're like, no, video to us means we have to pay tens of thousands of dollars, hiring a cameraman, renting equipment, hiring a studio for a day, setting up lights. That's not the kind of video I'm talking about. Some of the highest performing video we've seen is when an executive holds their phone, because it's one of the highest quality cameras that we have and it's in our pocket all the time, hold their phone up to their face and hit 2 or 3 or 4 bullet points of like, here's a tip or a trick that our audience needs to know, or this is something new happening in your industry that you should be aware of. That educational, helpful, friendly content does so much to make an emotional connection with your prospect. We know that people buy from emotion in B2C. They do in B2B as well. It's just been so hard to communicate emotion with B2B in the past. Like it's so hard. I struggle with this too. How do we communicate emotion? Emotion is passed so easily through video, where you could watch me for 30 seconds if you're watching this on video. After 30 seconds, you might be like, hey, I kind of like that guy, or he's giving me good advice. But you could go and read 5 of my ebooks or guides and get value out of it and still not feel the same level of a connection with me. So I would say video does not have to be expensive. Use it, keep it short. And that is one of the highest performing video, or one of the highest performing ad formats right now. There's another one too, but if you want to dig in at all to video, I'm happy to go deeper.
Yeah, interesting, because as you say, video is we hear that it's trending, and of course maybe it's a little bit of influx from TikTok and the consumer areas of social media and things like that. So when you see a company work really well with video and do it in a limited budget, as you say, what typically should this company start doing? Because I think a lot of people don't feel like they are TikTokers to be a little bit, within citation
Yeah.
marks.
Yeah, I think what it needs to be, you need to have a thought leader or an executive within your company who is willing to hold up their phone and hit the record button.
Yeah.
We found that so many of our clients were having trouble doing this. So we actually launched a service where we have a one-on-one video coach hop on with the executive over video. And when they we force them to record, like we hit the record button for them. And then when they say something, we say, oh, deliver that a little bit differently or say it like this instead. So we make sure that it's not on the executive to look at that scary record button for 2 hours and go, oh, this has to be perfect. We help them do it. But anyone can do this for free if your executive team or your thought leaders are willing to. That's what it takes. Just get video. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to make an emotional connection and provide value. And then the top tip I can give you is make sure that you have animated subtitles on there, like TikTok style subtitles, burned into the video. Because we actually ran a test where we had exactly the same video with just normal subtitles and that with the animated subtitles. Twice, and we've repeated this several times, twice the number of people made it to the end, meaning that double the people watched the video because the subtitles kept them engaged. And it costs next to nothing. There's a $12 a month tool we use to apply animated subtitles. It costs next to nothing to do. So I highly recommend you do it.
Ah, that was so interesting. I didn't know. Well, there's a nugget right there. We need to write down. Any else trends on the creative side and the ad formats?
Yeah, the next one I want to hit on is one that probably came out 2 years ago, and I tried it and it didn't work very well, so I kind of ignored it. But now it's doing really, really well, and I now know why it's doing well. It's called document ads. So lots of us in B2B, we have things like white papers and ebooks and guides, that kind of written content. And so when they came out with document ads, where you upload your PDF into the ad, and then people can scroll through the first few pages and hit download if they want, that didn't work very well. And we wondered why, like, oh, we should probably just use a different ad format to push people towards written content. And then what happened is, if you go look at your LinkedIn newsfeed right now, you're probably going to see someone doing a really good job of a document post organically. And if you look at what they're doing, that's so different than just uploading a PDF. It's not a long page of written content, page after page, that looks really scary to someone on a mobile device, because that's 80+% of the people who are viewing this are on their mobile. What it is it's instead of long documents, it's PDFs of images with one point on each slide blown way up. And it makes it so engaging. People they're excited to move to the next slide and figure out what's the next piece of information they're going to learn. And we've taken those and turned those into document ads. And now these are performing extremely well. We're getting 5 to 8% click-through rates, meaning, I mean, that's like 10 to 13 times higher than what they used to be when we were just using the single image ads. And of course, when you get engagement rates that are that high, your costs get that low. So we're finding that both of those, document ads and video, are slaying it if you do it right.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. Document ads. Learning 2 things here, at least. The fantastic content you got here for us, AJ. So the topic of the day is, of course, AI automation, with the rise of AI and all the tools we see now coming to the market. And we also see those, oh, we can AI your advertising and things like that. And there's also a few AI tools within the LinkedIn platforms. Do you have what's your take on this? Are there any tools you recommend for an enhanced ad performance? Or, yeah, as an expert, what do you say about this?
So LinkedIn has one product that they just released a little bit ago. It's still in beta, and it's called Accelerate. And what it is you hand the reins over as the advertiser to LinkedIn, and you say, have your AI tell me who the audience is, come up with the ad copy, create the imagery for me, and it goes and does it all for you. To me, as an advertiser, that scares me to death, that I would hand over the reins and not have any control over that. But we have had at least one member of our private community saying, hey, we tried it and it actually works really well. We're getting good performance. So that seems to be the way that LinkedIn is moving. There's weaknesses in the imagery. Everyone who's used it says, oh, we have to change the images. The ones that AI comes up with aren't great. But other than that, like, it's interesting. I just won't be able to use it because one of the best things that we can do for our advertisers is tell them who their audience is and how it's performing. And if we just hand that over to LinkedIn's AI and say, go figure this out, we never learn anything. We know that there's this black box that performs, but we can't go to the client and say, oh, it's people with the seniority of VP who are in the IT function. Those are your audience. And these who are of larger company sizes. We can't do that when AI does it. But it's interesting, especially for smaller companies who don't have someone like us to run their ads really strategically. So that's kind of interesting. We do use AI to write ad copy. That's a really good use for it. But what we haven't found yet is AI's ability to optimize active campaigns. What I would love it is if we had an AI model who would look at ad performance every day and come back to us saying, like, oh, you're paying too much here, lower this, or we've upped your budget over here, or we've lowered your bids. That kind of use of AI, I think, will be really exciting. I just haven't seen anyone build it yet.
Yeah, we'll see when it comes around. But that's interesting. You're really good. And when we're talking about ad copy, is it ChatGPT, or have you seen any trained models on it, or any experience from that area?
Ooh. Yeah, there's a lot that I want to play with. I've heard that Claude does written word really well. Right now, I use ChatGPT, and I have the pro version. And what I do is I go and create my own custom GPT for every client, because I can go into this GPT and I can train it and say, the tone that this company uses is this. Here are several pages of their content. Learn it. We like these ads to be less than 160 characters. We like to use 2 or fewer emojis. You can train it. And so now every time I go to write ad copy for that client, I can just say, here is a landing page. GPT, give me the ad copy I asked for. And it just keeps getting better and better. But I'm not married to ChatGPT. I'll use any AI model out there.
Yeah, fantastic. Interesting. Really good. And one thing that's been up for discussion a few years is that it becomes more and more expensive advertising on LinkedIn because it's so effective. And of course, LinkedIn and Microsoft, they're out for a profit. So they of course charge what they can get. But what's your budgeting advice for businesses of different sizes looking into LinkedIn advertising? How much or how little, or what's too expensive or what's cheap? Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I think that's maybe one of the most complex things with advertising on LinkedIn.
Yeah, last time we chatted, the average cost per click, if you were targeting North America, which is LinkedIn's most competitive area, was $8 to $12 per click. Yeah. And now it's like 11 to 17, somewhere in there. So we're seeing it get progressively more and more expensive, which is, I think, really scary. I think there's a limit. At some point, I don't think that there are going to be many advertisers outside of maybe the Fortune 500 who are willing to pay $25 per click. So I think there's a ceiling there somewhere where it gets out of reach for most advertisers. But the best advice I can give you, and this still works, it worked 10 years ago and it still works today, is that when you go to bid for your traffic on LinkedIn, they're going to give you this crazy range. They're going to say, hey, we suggest that you bid $19 for a click, and your competitors are bidding between $16 and $90 per click. So they give you this stupid, crazy range. A lot of people fall for that, but if you're starting with a small budget, you don't need to bid anywhere near what LinkedIn is recommending. We start out most of our advertisers on like $6 per click, $5 per click, because the worst that can happen is if you're bidding too little, you might see a day or two go by where you don't get enough traffic to fill your budget. So you can always go in and say, okay, I'm going to go and increase my bids here. If I bid $6 and it was too little, tomorrow I'm going to bid $7. And then Still didn't get enough traffic. I'm going to bid 8. Once you find what that sweet spot is, the lowest amount you can bid to still fill your whole budget, you've just won LinkedIn. You just got the cheaper, you just got like, you probably paid half as much for your traffic as your competitors are. And I can't think of a better way to beat competitors than spend half as much as them to get the same or better performance.
Fantastic. That's a good tip. Is there any difference in pricing on, is there any ad format or anything like that that's more efficient or pricier, so to say, or is it the same?
Yeah, really good question. There is one ad format called text ads, and I love them. They are very small. They're way over in the right rail, only on desktop, and you can pay all the way down to $2 per click. They get clicked on so little. They have an average click-through rate of 0.025%. So 2.5 clicks out of every 10,000 times they're served. And so right now you're going, AJ, I think you're crazy. You just told me you liked this ad format, but no one ever clicks on it. That's true. What I like so much about this is it's going to show your logo every time your prospect loads a page on LinkedIn, and it costs you next to nothing. Just by running these ad formats, or this ad format of text ads with an ad containing your logo, we see usually about a 13% lift in engagement rates on all your other ad formats. So I love using these. They're a very inexpensive way to prop up the rest of your ads.
Smart.
Yeah. And then everything else is pretty much in the news feed that you'd care about, like your video, your document, your single image ads. They're all in the news feed. So if you run these text ads that are meant to make those look better, then all of a sudden you have all these prospects who are going, when they see your ad for the first time, they go, oh, I've heard of this company before. They must be legit. Yeah, I'll pay attention. And it's just because they subliminally saw your text ad over and over.
That's wonderful. Yeah. If you're a marketeer and, want to do an ABM campaign of maybe 500 to 1,000 companies and you have a few thousand names in there, what is a good ad budget in order to get some traction, in order to drive an offer on a landing page or so? What's your typical recommendation?
It's such a hard question to answer because in order to decide how much you're going to spend, you need to know how your ads are going to perform, which most of the time we don't before we launch something. You need to know how large that audience size is. That LinkedIn can tell us. But then we need to know how active that audience is on LinkedIn. Yeah. And that we don't know. Every audience is different. So I would say start with something like with a small ABM campaign, start with something like a $3,000 a month budget and just test and see, like, could we spend that? Is that too much? Is that too little? And you can always adjust from there. But I like to say, get permission to spend more budget than you think you're actually going to. Because it's so easy to come back and say, oh, you gave us 3,000. We were only able to spend 2,000 of it. Than it would be to say, we asked for 3,000. We actually need 2,000 more. It's a little harder to get extra budget.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. I like that. And talking about, eyeballs and things like that, how do you see the number of hours people are spending on reading content and scrolling on LinkedIn is in comparison to other social media? Is LinkedIn, keeping up, or is it losing ground, or what's the attractivity of LinkedIn as a content platform?
I think this is LinkedIn's biggest weakness is we have all of this data about who people are professionally. And so we want access to that audience. And yet LinkedIn is this network that people don't spend tons and tons of time on like they do on Instagram or TikTok. But we do see that shifting. We see it changing, which is exciting. LinkedIn has always been afraid to share their daily active user numbers. All the other all the other social media platforms are proud of that number. LinkedIn has always hid it. And I'm guessing it's because they're ashamed of how small that number is. But what is great, LinkedIn, they gave us the ability, it's probably been a couple years ago, to advertise to people off of LinkedIn through something they call the LinkedIn Audience Network, which the traffic isn't very good quality. I haven't found good uses for it. but they just expanded that now to connected TV. So now you're going to be able to show ads to very specific business people by their title, by who they are at work, when they're home watching TV in the evenings with their families. And I think that's really cool. And from everything we're seeing so far, is that's actually performing really well.
Wow. Didn't know. Fantastic. Interesting. And talking about that, and the investments here, how should companies measure their return on investment for LinkedIn ads? Are there any tools or metrics, or how do you typically measure ROI for your clients?
Yeah. ROI is so difficult in B2B because we have these really long sales cycles. So you have to measure things over a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have all of these conversion events that occur, like signing a letter of intent with a sales rep, or booking a call with a sales rep. These are all things that they're offline conversion events that a sales rep is putting manually into a CRM. So it's so difficult when you're in an ad platform and all of this data is happening outside of the ad platform, and you have to wait a long time to see it. So ideally for ROI, you would know, here's how much we spent over the period of time that deal started with us and then closed. But because that can take so long to find out, we have to shrink that window that we as marketers are looking at. So generally what we look at is, rather than a closed deal happening, we usually look at something like a sales qualified lead happening. And that's oftentimes when sales is talking to a customer and the customer shows interest, saying, yeah, I'm willing to look into this more. So that would be like a sales qualified lead. Sometimes those happen in days after advertising to them. Sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's even months, but it's a lot shorter than the closed deal. If that's too far though, you might look at just okay, what's my lead conversion rate and my cost per lead? And then try to say, it takes us about 10 leads before we get a sales qualified lead. So you can start to predict. So that's what I like to look at. I like to look at a cost per sales qualified lead if we have enough time.
Wonderful. Love that. And when it comes to LinkedIn overall, now you have given us a lot of insights here and things that are hot and smart to do and things like that. But if you look a little bit in the future there, what trends do you foresee in LinkedIn advertising over the next few years? And is there anything we as advertisers should prepare for?
Ooh, so those of you who've been advertising already heavily on Meta and on Google and others, you've been using probably what's called server-side attribution and server-side tracking. It's the conversions API is what they call it, CAPI for short. LinkedIn just gave us access to their CAPI like 6 months ago. And I've been hard at work getting this set up for us because it's highly technical and I'm not the most technical marketer out there. But I think this is probably what we're going to see happening, where when cookies are totally gone, like you can't count on data coming from cookies because it's such a small representative sample, having the data come from your server, reporting it back, and then having data come from your CRM system, reporting back to LinkedIn and giving it attribution, saying, hey, that person that you showed impressions to 6 months ago and they just clicked last week, they're now a closed deal for us. Like that kind of data closing the loop inside of LinkedIn's campaign manager, I think that is the biggest thing that they could have ever done. And I'm really excited to see what they end up doing there. I also see this connected TV thing. Like connected TV is one of those things that you don't run as a brand unless you're really big. You've already totally maxed out your spend on LinkedIn, totally maxed out your effectiveness on Google, on Meta. You start getting into video creative for TV commercials, and then you consider connected TV. But because LinkedIn's making it so easy, I think we're going to see that flip. I think we're going to see brands go, oh, we would consider making video creative for connected TV before we think about trying to do a Super Bowl commercial or something crazy like that.
Yeah, great. Awesome. So interesting. And there's a lot of things going on there. And yeah, so if a company who suddenly listening to this podcast and feels that, wow, we haven't tried advertising on LinkedIn, what advice would you give somebody who's just starting out with LinkedIn advertising in 2024 now? Where should they start?
Uh, there's so many great ways we could go with this. Number one, I think it's avoiding those initial pitfalls of LinkedIn's telling you to bid too much. Don't do it. LinkedIn's telling you to use their audience expansion tools. Don't do it. LinkedIn's telling you you need huge audiences. Don't do it. So kind of ignoring a lot of LinkedIn's own advice and just launch your campaigns really smartly. I think that's the first thing that you can really do. The second thing is realize that cold audiences are not ready to buy. If it's an audience that has never heard of you before, it doesn't even make sense to show them an ad that says book a demo with our sales team, because people are not going to be ready to do it. If they do it, they're probably going to not show up 80% of the time, and it just wastes the sales rep's time. So think about, when I approach LinkedIn for the first time, what can I provide my ideal target audience with that is helpful and educational and isn't asking them for anything yet? And go to them with an awareness play first before you ever ask for them to fill anything out. And when you do that, you're setting yourself up for long-term success.
Beautiful. I love that. I can totally comply with that. So that's awesome. I know you have a lot of stuff on your plate. So AJ, thank you so much for your time and all your insights. It's so exciting every time we talk. But before we go, listeners who want to know more about you and your content and your company, B2 Linked and so forth, where can they find you?
Come and follow me on LinkedIn. I'm constantly sharing like all the cool tips and tricks that I find I share on LinkedIn. I also host the LinkedIn Ads Show podcast. So obviously, if you're listening to this, you're a podcast listener. So go tune into that. We also have a community called our LinkedIn Ads Fanatics community, where we've got 4 courses that take you from absolute beginner to LinkedIn Ads expert, plus getting to interact with all the other LinkedIn Ads pros. And it's really low cost. I think it's $79 a month right now to get access to all of that. So no matter what it is you're trying to do, come follow, come get free information, come join the community.
Thank you so much, AJ. I wish you all the best with your company and all the future endeavors you have in mind as well.